It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we talk property news right around Australia, 7 days a week, of course, as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. The middle of our working week. It is a Wednesday, the 10th of July. Certainly well settled into July. Next stop, of course, is August and then September. Oh man, the back end of 2024 is underway, isn't it? Now, prospective home buyers, this could be you relying on property price guides from multiple areas to help navigate you through the volatile real estate market. These reports, these prices can be, though, some of the experts are saying, inaccurate and overwhelming, especially for newcomers. Now, the demand for housing market data, there's no question that it has surged post-COVID, with economists, analysts, banks and real estate companies feeding the data through to consumers. And some of the experts say that there are right now these inconsistencies, and they throw up this as an example. In May, PropTrack reported Perth's median house price at $699,000, while the Real Estate Institute of WA said that the median price was $650,000. And CoreLogic claimed a 22% annual increase. So these experts are highlighting the volatility, as I say, in the housing market, and the information isn't always the same. So they advise buyers to consult multiple sources, including real estate agents on the ground, to get as clear a picture as possible, because that is such a big issue. And we've got a featured guest, James, coming up in just a moment. But we will also be catching up with Eliza Owen again from CoreLogic and actually asking her some of those questions. But first, let's catch up with James Gilbertson of LJ Hooker in Cairns Beach. And welcome to you, James, to the Real Estate Breakfast. And just coming back to that point, about all of the information that people are getting, is that something that you're sort of dealing with yourself, where you're trying to be as accurate as possible with the numbers?
Absolutely. It's imperative that we try and stay accurate with numbers, not only to try and work out where we're going ourselves, but we have to be able to advise our clients, the vendors, as to what's going on with the market nationally, not just on a micro scale where they are. We have to look at these things and try and be on top of everything.
You guys had the cyclone Jasper, which flooded last year. I guess just on that point alone, in terms of data information, sometimes that can be sort of lagging behind reality. Is that a fair comment?
Absolutely. Predominantly, there were only 3 suburbs that were affected by the subsequent flooding after Cyclone Jasper. You have to really go north for the cyclone to have had the major damage north of here, up through the Daintree in that area. The flooding hit us quite bad for 3 main suburbs. What happens in those suburbs falls to the wayside in terms of the averages and things like that, as 1,000 homes went under and everybody's trying to rebuild to different sort of levels.
So where is the market at the moment in terms of the effects that Cyclone Jasper has, like in terms of the housing, the properties that have been selling in those areas that you mentioned?
The main flooding occurred in Caravonica, Masons Beach and Holloways Beach. Not all of those suburbs obviously went under. If you were in the floodplain surrounding the Barron River, it was the main area for damage. The majority of those homes are going through their restoration process. They're all at different stages. Some people have already moved back in, others are yet to commence. The rest of Cairns, however, is still enjoying a very good sales season for us, because winter is generally our sales season. This is the peak period for us. It's our dry season in theory, and everybody will be sort of coming up from the south to enjoy the warmer weather.
Now, you were telling me off air that the investors are still coming in. You're still seeing plenty of people, first home buyers, looking at the area because of the price point. So what has been happening over the last few months?
The area is still a lot cheaper than some of the capital cities. So first home buyers and investors love the area. They're able to buy these houses at a much cheaper price than some of the other areas. And the rental returns are still excellent up here because we have a lot of short-term holiday makers coming up, or people that want to stay for 6 months, work before moving on and travelling around Australia. Renting, not a problem. Finding tenants, not a problem. The returns are spectacular. At the end of the day, you're able to buy a home or a unit at a very reasonable price. So that side of the market is fantastic.
Now, tell us a little bit about a property which just recently sold. Now, this was affected, I think, by Cyclone Jasper sweeping through the region. It hasn't been touched since the cyclone took place, like the property. It got damaged, I think. Nothing has happened. It's almost like it's frozen in time. Located in Holloway Beach, managed to sell for 416 and change, I think. Not too many of these properties about, probably.
Not too many of them. I am still talking to a couple of owners who are deciding whether they are going to sell now or sell later. This particular property in Holloway Beach was owned by an international owner who it was not insured. Everything had just floated because the flood level in this particular house got to approximately the height of the kitchen bench. It was totally trashed.
All right, well, we'll leave it there, James. Thank you so much for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning, giving us a little bit of a lay of the land in Cyclone Jasper and post and all of that, and what's happening with those investors. And the first home buyers are still looking rather favourably on you. Enjoy your Wednesday.
Thank you, Craig. All the best to you and enjoy your podcast. Keep it up.
We dive deep into topics like buying, selling, investing, and maximising your property's value. From mortgage advice to the latest property data, your real estate journey starts here. We are more than just a real estate podcast. Follow each week all of the main talking points and know your property.
And I thought it would be a great idea this morning, since we were talking about some of the claims from some of the experts talking about the prices from various portals. As I mentioned at the top, the experts claim that right now there are these inconsistencies, and they talked about in May, PropTrack reported that Perth's median house price $699 compared to the Real Estate Institute of WA at $650, and mentioning that CoreLogic claimed a 22% annual increase. Well, let's get back Eliza Owen, because who better to ask than somebody who is at the coal face of this? And how challenging, Eliza, is it to just, with these moving prices, to be satisfying absolutely everybody?
It's an incredible time in the Perth market when you see very strong levels of demand relative to available supply, properties sitting on the market for an average of 10 days across the Perth market, and naturally values moving very quickly. So we've recorded an incredibly strong growth rate for the past financial year of 23.6% in Perth values, and that includes a 2% increase over the month of June.
How often do you sort of get approached with regard to that, with regard to the prices that you guys are reporting on? Is it sort of like a very small percentage of people that might be dissatisfied?
I don't think it's necessarily dissatisfaction, but I totally appreciate with more and more players in the property space that there's a bit of confusion between why one organisation would report one number over another. And so Professor Paul Flatow was interviewed about this recently by the ABC, and he quite rightly noted that the difference in reporting comes back to the difference in methodology and data that these different organisations would have. One thing I would push back on is the idea that you need to take all these different readings and average them out. I think a better approach to reading property data is actually understanding the different methodologies and the different data sources that organisations have, and that can inform which one is the superior to follow. One of the things that I love about working for CoreLogic is that we have an extremely comprehensive database of properties that we have been collecting information on for decades. So when it comes to timely, accurate results, I can really trust that those CoreLogic values are reflecting very closely what is happening in the Perth market. We've also introduced a revisionary method to our home value index over time. So on top of getting really timely, comprehensive information, we're constantly updating and refreshing those numbers to reflect all of the sales results that are trickling in.
And what about AI? Because, we know that it's becoming more and more granular, the minutiae of getting into some of the data over a long period of time with a mature market and all of that. But AI, is that going to actually improve the sort of data, reporting on pricing, etc.?
It can, and at CoreLogic, it already does. So we actually use machine learning to constantly test our models and make sure that we're using the most important variables that basically give you the best understanding of what a property is worth, which typically still comes back to the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, parking spaces, and those high-level sort of attributes. But we can also use artificial intelligence to read images of a property, for example, and then that could give you some insight into the materials or feature of a property and add into our understanding of the market as well.
Fantastic. I knew that you would have all the answers for that. Well done. All right. Well, thank you for that. Enjoy your Wednesday.
No worries at all. And thanks again for having me.
We talk to the most knowledgeable real estate experts across Australia every day from 6 a.m.
Because Perth does have a history of having these long periods of stagnations followed by a period of fabulous growth, it's one of those markets that you have to really time significantly if you want to be able to get something out of it as an investor.
Are we, do you feel, in this stabilising market at the moment? Some people say that at auctions there are a few more people showing up. What's your sort of take on that?
I think that might be agents trying to talk up the market or property people trying to talk up the market. It's a funny situation at the moment because typically as we head into autumn, we see things start to slow down a little bit anyway. But if we look around the country and see the country as a whole, we are definitely seeing a significant number of markets that are just starting to see not what I would call a slowdown, but maybe a stabilisation.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.